Folks, about this is Steve Sampson and Stephanie Phillips with Veterans in Politics. Today, our guest is going to be Kamilah Bywaters, Clark County School Board Trustee, District E candidate. And I'm sure many of you are watching the debates, the presidential debates. And I heard a lot of people that they really don't want to watch presidential debates because they already got their minds made up. So maybe, hopefully, you'll tune in and watch Ms. Bywaters as she interviews for District E School Board Trustee seat. But before we get to Ms. Bywaters, Ms. Phillips.
It's hot outside.
Yeah.
Yes, it's hot.
Is it hot?
Yes, it's hot. No real rants.
Did you just run for U.S. Senate?
I did.
Yeah, you want to rant about that?
Well, that's going to take a whole podcast that
okay.
someday we'll have to do and talk about my experience. But it was great. I loved every moment. Don't regret a thing, and it was an awesome experience.
And you know how some people, they complain about, I'm running for this assembly district. It's so hard. And you ran the entire state.
Gosh, I look at these assembly districts and state senate districts, and I think, my gosh, I could probably do that with my eyes closed. After doing that statewide thing, it's a lot of work. And if you're going to do it right, and you got to put in 110%, I gave it my all. I gave it my heart and soul, literally for this state, and willingly so. And I learned a ton. I could never even have paid for an education like that. It's very eye-opening being a candidate. You see all the inside of workings of politics and all of that in our state. But it was interesting. I loved it.
Well, I'm glad you could come and help us interview Ms. Bywaters. Before I ran, I did podcasts, and I love this side of it. And I sat on the other side of the endorsement panel. I've been on both sides of that now, and I enjoy all of that. So it's great to be back. It's Kamilah Bywaters.
Yeah.
Kamilah,
yes.
Kamilah.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for inviting me here today. I love a good conversation. And I think it's so important. I love to get to know people. A lot of my research is in identity and teacher narratives. So I love a good story, and I love to hear who people are. Again, my name is Kamilah Bywaters. I was born and raised here in Las Vegas. I graduated from Rancho High School. My dad was a teacher at Rancho High School. He passed away about 4 years ago now.
Two of my sons went to Rancho.
Really? No way.
Oh, yeah.
See, look at the vibes. So I went to school with my dad when he was a teacher. He made sure, make sure you're on point. Don't embarrass me. Do what you need to do. Yeah. So I really had, the person I am today is accredited to my dad, and the work that I do is really in honor of my mom and my dad, and the legacy of just, serving people, being good to people, and doing what I can to move all of us forward. I really believe that we all should win, and there's enough room for everyone to win. So I'm a special education teacher. I'm a licensed in special education like my dad was. I've worked in both Clark County School District and DC Public Schools. I've worked at a charter school. I stopped teaching because of some of the challenges that I experienced, which put me on this avenue to advocacy, which is now why I'm here today running for the school board seat.
And you've been endorsed by the Joint Veterans.
Absolutely.
Yes. That was a very impressive interview.
Oh, thank you. I was so excited. Not too many people were doing forums, and I'm like, where are the forums? So I was really excited to be a part of the conversation. And I love challenging questions, and I feel like your forum was one of the best that I had attended.
Thank you.
I think it's really important that we, really vet candidates, because there's people out here who want to be in a position to serve us, and they just think that putting their name on the ballot, that's the privilege, right? Like, I'm on the ballot, you should vote for me. So I really appreciated the forum, because it really gave me an opportunity to, to come before you all and to hear your questions and see what some of the challenges are, which I think I remember, just how to work with our veteran students, our students who are part of veteran families and military families, like how to better support them. So I see forums as not only as an opportunity to get to understand my ideologies and who I am as a person, but to also understand the challenges that are happening within communities such as your own.
And where are the boundary lines?
Yeah. So my district is in Summerlin, Summer Spring Valley. I go out to Blue Diamond. My high schools, to give you kind of a reference, I have Palo Verde, Bonanza, CSN, West, and Miley, one of the Miley Achievement Centers. So that's kind of like my area of school, so you can know like where I am. I do go down to Sahara and Decatur, left toward to the 95 and back up to Summerlin. So I do have, there are 213,000 voters in the district. It's very large. And that's our space. And, I look forward to, just working hard and really engaging with our community to understand, what do we need to do to bring our community back to the center of education? And I feel like that's really been something that our community has been asking for decades. Like we've been asking to be a part of public education, to be a part of making change and making sure that all of our voices are at the table. And that's one thing that is very important to me, is that, this relationship that we're building here, like if together we collaborate to build public education. And that's regardless of your religion, regardless of your party. I'm here for you. Your challenge is my challenge. And that's how I really operate and live my life.
Speaking of the district, a lot of people talk about breaking up the district because it's so big. What do you think about that?
So I've actually been quite critical of breaking up the district. And the reason why is because those proponents who are interested in breaking up the district, my question has always been, where is the plan to show that it would be equitable across counties or cities? So I decided to do a lot of what I do in my advocacy work. I'm the president of the Las Vegas Alliance of Black School Educators. Shout out to Vice President Tracy Lewis, which has really grounded the work that I do in education. So not only have I learned from being a teacher, but I've also learned like some of the challenges from a student perspective, from their families. And also as a researcher, one of the things that was important to me, I was like, well, this is a big topic that continues to come up in the legislature. And I understand why. We have a school system that is failing people's children. So people want to make the best choice for their families, which they should have the right to do. I did research on the decentralization, secession, and consolidation of school districts. So when we're talking about breaking up the school district, the word that's used in the literature is secession. And in my research, I did not find a conclusive strategy or plan that supports that breaking up a large school district will mean that it will be equitable in other districts. So for me, I'm definitely not against innovation and change, but let's see a plan on how it's going to work. Because here's the community concern. We already have inequities and inequities within our school system now. So essentially, if we break apart...
Can you explain that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
sure. So some of the challenges that people are facing now, resources. So for example, schools in my district, some of the schools have a little bit more resources than our schools in historic West Las Vegas. For example, Matt Kelly, what school did I visit? Was it Matt Kelly? One of the schools in historic West Las Vegas, I went to visit, used the restroom, turned on the sink, and it didn't work. And like, really? Come on. Like the least we can do is make sure that our children can wash their hands. Now, the school that my children attend, Afston, it's beautiful. The facility is gorgeous. I go in, I use the sink, and the sink is working. So the concern is that some of these inequities will follow to the district. So for example, Henderson, their community may have different asks and needs than schools in historic West Las Vegas. And what people are seeing is that these inequities will become in district that we have already, that we know about, and then we'll just separate, kind of like the haves and the have-nots. So that's the concern that people have, and what community members are saying, especially in historic West Las Vegas, show us how all schools, if all districts, because we're talking about splitting up a district, would be equitable. Would schools in Henderson, what would the funding look like for schools in Henderson? What would the funding look like for schools in Spring Valley, in Summerlin, in Mountain's Edge, in historic West Las Vegas? And I think that's one of the biggest concerns, and that some other concerns that we have are disproportionality. So we see a lot of our minoritized students, Hispanic and Black students, they're achieving at lower rates than our white counterparts, and our Asian students do pretty well. Our Native American students are low too in academics. We have a high rate of students being expelled from school, some for really frivolous matters. And the reason I know these, so for example, I get called often for students who are about to be expelled from school. And there's levels. You know, there's some behaviors where we really have to deal with because you're causing harm not only to yourself, but to the people around you. And there's consequences and, you know, supports that we need to provide for students. On the other hand, there's other types of situations. For example, just recently, Tracy and I helped a student who they were going to expel from school, like kick out of the Clark County School District, because a situation had happened where he was at home and accidentally like videotaped himself, his area. And it was blurred out. You couldn't see it, but the school was trying to say it was like porn. And so, you know, and yeah, you know, oh goodness, this happened. Somebody saw it, and I guess the students started spreading it around. But there's a difference between a snapshot and like a porn video. Mm-hmm. So, you know, our fight was, are we really going to kick out a student who hasn't had any issues, any challenges, and has like this one little thing happen, and kick him out of school because you're saying it's like pornography? Long story short, we ended up attending the hearing. And one thing that's happening with the Clark County School District is they're not following the law. So we've been able to get some of our students back into school. So the win was that the student did not get expelled, but transferred to another school, and mom was happy with that. That's one example. Another example, unfortunately, the Black community uses the N-word as a term of endearment. And, you know, it's just what it is. That's where we are in society. So I had a mom calling me in tears. She's like, Kamilah, my child is so good, on the path to going to college, and they're trying to expel him, 9th grade. So, you know, hey, tell us the situation. And one thing about Tracy and I and the work that we do is we don't judge anyone. There's all kinds of situations happening. We don't judge you. We want to hear the story so that we can have discussions around it and see how we can help move you to the next place. Long story short, the school wanted to kick him out because he used the word the students were making like a podcast and they were saying the N-word. So the school was embarrassed, obviously, as you should be. But their discipline for that was really misguided. So we do have an anti-racism policy. So if you're bullying people and you're calling people the N-word because it's racially based and it's hate and it's bullying, that's one thing. But if you're using it as a term of endearment, that's something else. Mm-hmm. So we fought to get this child, to make sure that the student didn't get expelled. And the win for this one was that this student didn't get expelled and actually got to stay at Rancho and is now on the path to, you know, this student was in the aerospace magnet program. Yeah, like what? Like, you're super smart. I went to Rancho. Aerospace was not my thing. Chemistry, math, I struggled. So I think that what we have is opportunities to, children are going to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. And I think that we have to, you know, determine when what they're doing is harmful to themselves and to those around them versus children playing around because this is what they're going to do when they get together. So that's one challenge in regards to discipline, but there's others if you want to.
Yeah, and there's violence in school, and these kids sometimes are attacking teachers, assaulting them, raping them. We've seen, of course, there's shootings in schools, people bringing guns to schools. So what is your answer for that? So, and that's the other end that we cannot ignore. We saw the incident with what happened to our dear teacher at El Dorado. I think a lot of the issue that's happening right now within the Clark County School District is that we're being very reactive. I could guarantee you that the students that have the most challenges have given us some type of, they've shown us something that showed us that this person needs more severe support than our typical children. As a special education teacher, I know when a student is on the edge and what's happening. Where they would be a possible threat or they would be violent. I can guarantee you can kind of pick them out. I can guarantee you there's opportunities to pinpoint the challenge. And what's happening is that because the teacher shortage, staff shortage, we're missing those key opportunities to know when a child needs more support than what a school can provide them. And so I do believe in restorative justice. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Explain what that is to the audience. Absolutely. And give an example, which you were just talking about, and say why you support that. I do support restorative justice, but I do want people to understand is that there's some people who do not support restorative justice because they believe it's like a slap on the hand to the person who has caused the harm. That's not the case. The purpose of restorative justice is to provide an opportunity for the person who has caused harm to understand how their action, their violence, their abuse, whatever harm it was, how you have impacted somebody else's life. And what's the threshold? Where do you draw that line? I would think that if my kids were in school and there was violence, then, do you immediately expel them? Do you suspend them for 3 days? What is that? I think every situation is, and this is a community conversation. So like, for example, if it was something that happened within your family, that's something that happened to you, you have a right to be a part of those conversations and decide what this should look like. There's severities of harm and, someone could have just cussed somebody out. And then we have the incident where this is severe, where you're harming your teacher and that's battery. Each situation has to be evaluated and analyzed for that particular situation. And there's a team of people who should be a part of this process, including counselors, psychologists, school leadership, the families. There's a team of people who should be a part of discussing what the best mode of action should be. And this discipline and this protocol or these policies or whatever you're talking, that goes for all students, regardless of race, background, culture, all of that. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's all students. We have to be able to, our educational space is the place where we're teaching our students how to be in community with people who don't share their same values, their beliefs, their backgrounds. And it's important that we use this space. And it's challenging because teachers are trained to teach. And I know you've heard a lot about needing more mental behavioral health officials. We don't have enough. Right. And, children are coming to school. Some students are coming to school with challenges. Maybe they have absent families and they're not being parented because their families are working 3 and 4 jobs. Maybe they have the mom or the dad or guardian who is a workaholic. Maybe there's parents or children who don't have parents at all. So schools are in a place where, in a situation where they have to deal
and handle and work through a lot of the challenges that students are bringing into schools. And I know, because there is the misconception about restorative justice, and I'm totally for restorative justice, students have to have consequences. And I know me as a teacher, I'm actually pretty strict. I tried to do kindergarten. I was like, no, this isn't for me.
Some people have the opinion that it's only for, you have special rules for a child of a minority child or whatever race it is, that you've got a set of rules for these kids, and then these kids have another set of rules. I think that's where the misconception is. Yeah,
there's no different set of rules. Like, there's no policy that says Black children get treated this way, Hispanic children get treated this way, white children get treated this way, Asian. There's no policy or rule. Now, what I think unconsciously happens is that people treat people a certain way because of their experiences, because of their misconceptions or their stereotypes. Now, I do want to say that students with disabilities, I'm a special education teacher, you have to follow the law when we're dealing with students with disabilities and their challenges. So there are some different things there that are different from students who don't have disabilities. But no one should be treated differently in regards to discipline. Discipline needs to be fair across the board. If student A gets in a fight and student B gets in a fight, their consequence should be equitable. And we're not seeing that.
Who started it?
I know, right?
Right?
I know.
That old school.
My husband's like, hey,
school.
if somebody hits you, you better slap them.
I told my kids, I said, you will never get in trouble from me at home.
Defend yourself.
You defend yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody hits you, you never strike first. You never start a fight. But if someone starts it with you, you finish it. So and you defend yourself. That is absolutely, and that's old school. I know some people don't agree with that, but
and if you don't defend yourself, you're going to have bullies.
So let me say this. Bully 1, if you get in a fight, bully 2, their consequences, consequences aren't different because of your color, your skin color, your religion. We try to, you have to be as fair as possible. Right. And that's why we're seeing inequities. Black students are only 14% of the population, but 40% of students being expelled. And that's the same with the Hispanic population is growing, but the number that are in schools outnumber their expulsion rates outnumber the number of students that are in school. So that's definitely, there's some things going on.
What is that attributed to? Is it violence? Is it, what is that? What is,
I think there are quite a few factors that attribute to that. I think there is biases happening. I think that.
So you're saying that a Black student will be expelled, let's say, for a violent act on a teacher, but yet a white student does the same thing to that teacher and they're not expelled. Sometimes, is that what's happening?
Sometimes, yes. And I wouldn't necessarily say like, it depends on the type of violence, because most of the time, if it's like, if you're going punching your teacher in the face, that's really clear cut, hard. Yeah, you got. You know what I'm saying?
You have to go.
For that. Yeah. I'm a Black woman and I have Black girl magic, attitude. Sometimes I can give you a little attitude, but sometimes my students who, I've seen children getting expelled because they keep getting in trouble, and there's no violence associated with it. They're making podcasts and using the N-word. So there's a lot of different things happening, and you can look on the Clark County School District keeps a record and a track, and the Civil Rights Office of Civil Rights has a record and a track of the statistics on who's being expelled and what types of events are happening. Like, for instance, bullying. Right now, there's people who aren't even leaders in schools who are not reporting bullying. I just had a mom that I met. I was minding my own business at the pool with my kids the other day. And the mom just happened to say she was not sending her child with autism back to school because the child keeps getting bullied. Yeah. And so there's a lot of things happening here. Yeah.
have been traveling all over, the state, as you know, and I have talked to so many parents. And the issue is, and I know on your, on the endorsement interview, you talked about going to school board meetings and stuff like that. And I want to get into that because that is so controversial. And there's so many hot buttons there for parents. And they're so upset about what has been happening with some of this curriculum and things at the school board meetings. And I want to get to that. But education as a whole, everybody talks about that too. I heard, so many people bring that up.
It's a hot ticket.
So, and I always ask people, where do you think that breakdown is? Why are we last in the country? What do you think legislatively maybe that needs to happen? Where do you see those improvements being made that we could turn that corner? Mm-hmm. And I always get a different answer from people, but go ahead.
And sometimes different answers because some people are not really engaged and involved in the level that I'm involved. Like I attend school board meetings like it's my full-time, part-time job. So I really have a sense of what's going on in public education here and then across the United States. Education is $1 billion industry. And what we're seeing is that there are a lot of corporations who want to put their hands in the pot, and they're looking for school districts who will, I don't want to say be naive, but who will be a part of this corporate kind of takeover. What we're dealing with here in the Clark County School District, and I would say across the board, in my personal opinion, education is the basic foundation of life. The basic foundation. And all of us go through K through 12 education. Now, what you decide to do after that is your choice, your right. But we all go through K through 12 education unless there's some particular circumstance that students have and they're not in schools for whatever reason is happening. And I do personally believe that there is this design and structure to keep education in the place that it is where we're not thriving because educated people are empowered people. We're people who can, if you go and get your basic education, you know how to live on your own. You know how to speak up for yourself. You learn how to be a productive citizen. You learn how to be creative and to think and to make decisions to help your family. So I do feel that there's an attack on education so that we can have people who have to depend on someone else to help us to thrive. So the breakdown that we have right now in the Clark County School District and kind of across the nation, because it's $1 billion industry, is these corporations want to put their hands in it and kind of drive education, which has happened here. The Clark County School District has been run by the Council of Great City Schools. This is an organization that looks for school districts that they can turn around, and they get a cohort of superintendents that they train. And then these individuals go look for jobs at the school districts. So now they can become a cohort. We send all of our money to their people that they know to give software. And I think what happens when we do that is we push out our public, the people who are here every day, who understand the needs of our students, understand the needs of our families. We push them away from being involved in public education. And for me, and I know there's a lot of people who are not happy about this. Some of the former trustees are like, oh, they love the Council of Great City Schools. Like, to me, you have to show me why. What did our superintendent Jara fix or change for us to believe in the Council of Great City Schools? Now, I do believe there's a diamond in the rough, maybe in that organization. But for me, what is happening is that we have individuals who are power hungry, who want money, who want to take money from our state, bring it to their state, support their curriculum, support their software programs, support the people that they know, continue to make them rich. And at the end of the day, our education suffers.
Do you think there's enough funding? It's just a matter of where it's appropriated?
So I'm kind of like on the both ends. I do think So this is why I'm both and. The legislature showed us this past COVID that you had $250 million extra that you could send to the schools. So for me, we have the ability to fund education more than what we've been doing. So yes, they've showed their hand. There's more money. So we need to make sure that we're investing in our schools. Now, my other part is that the Clark County School District gets the money that they get, and then they're making frivolous decisions. For example, the Clark County School District spent about $53 million to $55 million on a virtual tutoring program that was ineffective. It came from the Council of Great City Schools, their software vendors. And not only did they provide a service to the Clark County School District, they provided a service to other school districts across the United States. So imagine how many millions of dollars they got. And there was a news report that, and I'm not the one to, whenever there's a news report, I don't say, oh, this is it. No, I always investigate. I don't always believe what I hear. But that one, I was like, no, this is right. Because when I was in schools, the teachers were like, we're not even using it. They're making us use it to make it seem like it's valuable. Students complained. Students didn't even know how to use it. But at the end of the day, you paid a virtual tutoring program when you have teachers who are trained to tutor students. So I think it's both and. More money definitely could be needed. Provided.
Teachers, retaining some of these good teachers, though, if they're getting attacked in school and they're not being protected,
they're not going to be there.
And there's not enough support there, they're not going to want to stay. So I think it's a multi-pronged issue as far as that goes. But what is truly disturbing in some of these school board meetings, and I know you've been there and you've seen this, and we've all seen this online, is where these parents come and they're reading excerpts from these books that are extremely graphic, explicit, and all this. And I want to play this for you because I got this one video, and I want you to comment on it, because at this school board meeting, the board just got up and left, and they either leave, they end the meeting, adjourn, or cut the microphone. And to me, some of these things that are being said, that they're reading from these books that are available to the kids. If you can't say these things in public around adults and you can't print them in a newspaper, why on earth are these kids getting this stuff? But I want to play this. And I'm going to put my microphone near it so you can pick this up. Hold on just a second. I'm going to start this over. This is the Pastor John.
Oh, okay. I remember.
You know who he is. I can't pronounce his last name. Sorry, John, if you see this.
It says Christy is on all fours facing the headboard, her ASS raised high in the air, and I'm straddling her back as if I was riding a dog or something, but backward, my knees resting on the mattress, my half hard, and I'm facing Sabrina, who is staring into Christy's spread open ASS with a determined expression. Her smile seems torture, and she's wetting her own lips by herself and tracing her glistening index finger across them, like she's applying lip gloss. With both my hands, I keep Christy's ASS and spread open, and I urge Sabrina to move in closer and sniff them, to sniff her rectum. We're gonna adjourn, folks. I motion for Sabrina to move her face in closer until she can stir my fingers.
So it falls apart from there.
Yeah.
I don't like to hear it, but yet it's in the schools.
But the thing is, and that's just one. There is, there's so many more. You've seen them. I'm sure you've been there in person and seen some of these. And what is stunning, and again, traveling all over the state and talking to parents and talking to people, this is a huge topic for people. And this was up in Washoe, but this happens in Clark too. And so I want to know if you were sitting on that board, because you're going to be faced with this if you're elected, right? This is going to happen because parents aren't going to let this go.
No.
At all. And until there is some kind of resolution with this, they're infuriated because this stuff, kids need to be taught the birds and the bees. You've got health, and sex education at, a level where, prevent pregnancy, STDs, you give them the facts, but where this has gone into is something extremely just, graphic and vile. What would you do with
so
that
I am not a proponent of banning books. However, I have said I'm going to ban this book because there was a book that was talking about Black people were dirt and this, that. And so I'm not a proponent of banning books. However, what I am a proponent of is ensuring that the resources and the materials that we're using are age appropriate. Now, I am not personally aware.
Age appropriate?
No.
All
No. Oh, absolutely. I don't agree that we should be talking about what they were talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So what I'm saying is I'm not, I agree with parents in this situation. Like,
so
and now, but
as a school board, would you cut him off, or would you tell your school board, would you tell the other trustees, hey, we got to let this guy talk. Let him read and let him finish. Don't cut his microphone off. Don't stop the meeting. No, not one school board trustee have I seen has had the courage to stand up and tell everybody, no, we're going to hear this parent out because you know what? We're responsible for this being in front of our kids. And if we can't read this aloud and this can't be in a public forum, then my gosh, this should not be in front of our kids.
Yes.
So would you have the courage to stand up in front of that board and say, we need to address this. We need to fix this.
So here's absolutely yes.
Good.
I do have the courage to do that.
Good.
I've already shown our community that I have the courage to do what most people don't do. I've called out Superintendent Jara. I asked for his resignation when it wasn't popular. I tell school board members about themselves. So I've already, put myself out there.
In case you didn't know.
Yeah. So now, like I said, your challenge is my challenge. So if a parent comes to me and says, hey, Kamilah, I found this in the library, what I am willing to do is we need to do an assessment of the resources that are in our schools. I personally have not seen a book in this nature in Clark County School District, but I'm not going to say that it's not there. If somebody is saying that it's there.
They're there.
So I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with us working together to determining what's K through 12 appropriate. I don't have a problem doing that. And I think this is where the community becomes important for us coming together. Now, because I don't agree with somebody, that doesn't mean I'm not going to listen to you. Like, let's do the evaluation. Take me to where this issue is and help me to see it and understand it from your perspective. So I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, earlier you mentioned about that one kid who they try to get for pornography, but yet they allow this in the school. Isn't that like hypocritical?
It would be.
So to speak?
But I need really, and this is going to be one of my tasks. I will personally go out and kind of see, speak with librarians and see if these are, where these books are, and look at them myself to see, because I haven't seen it and I haven't done that work. But that's the commitment that I can make to go and do this.
They've had plenty of parents, and this gentleman, he was down here as well in Clark County. But there's other parents that have stood up. I've watched them, and they cut the microphones because they won't allow this to be read.
Yeah.
And none of that. And here's a picture from, this is one of the books. And I'm going to have you zoom in on this. So I don't know if you can on one of these.
This is the book that was in the school?
This is one of the books that's in there. Is that appropriate at all? Even high school level, middle school level, any level. I don't see
I think that's inappropriate.
Which camera? That one?
In regards to, the sexual all that's inappropriate for our students.
So for our audience, this is 2 male students. One is performing oral sex on the other. I don't see any value in this type of material being presented to kids We need to be teaching them how to run a household, how to balance a checkbook, open a bank account, voting, getting involved in politics, how our country works, things like this. How to do laundry. I mean, there are so many other things that we could be, but this agenda has been pushed so hard on our kids.
I don't, so like I said, I'm open to evaluating the curriculum materials. You're not in the Clark County School District. You can't even show, listen, I got written up for showing a PG-13 movie that I didn't know I couldn't show a PG-13 movie. So you can't even, it was The Blind Side. You can't even show rated movies like that in school. So that's why I'm saying what's important to me is that we have an evaluation. Like, I want to see which libraries, which schools do we have sexually explicit materials being presented to students.
So this stuff you would not tolerate.
That's beyond the policy. I want to say you can show a G-rated movie, and that's like
Benji. Lassie.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so there's a big disconnect. And I don't want the conversation to get, let me just go back to what I was going to say. I'm open to doing a review and evaluation of curricular materials to ensure that they're K through 12 appropriate and in line with the policies that are structured for what types of materials and videos that students are allowed to see.
So up in Washoe, they are, if a student is transitioning, if they're using different pronouns, they're going to a different bathroom, they're dressing differently, the teachers don't have to alert the parents or tell the parents. So here they do at Clark County, is my understanding. So if that is presented to you as a school board and you're part of that, would you vote to allow that kind of information to be withheld from a parent?
I support LGBTQ plus IA communities, and I support transgender children. I think, again, this needs to be a conversation with, because we have a policy where students have to come together. The student comes together with their team. There's supposed to be a team of individuals that includes the parent to be a part of this conversation. So can you say again your question?
Would you hide or would you support the hiding of this information that the student is doing at school? Would you hide that from the parent, where the parent doesn't know the child's going to school and using, the girl bathroom and they're a boy, or vice versa, or they're dressing differently once they leave the house and they're saying, they're he, she, or he, him instead of she, her, and they're using different pronouns? Would you support that being hidden from the parent?
I don't know if this is happening in the way that you're saying it, like students are changing who they are and their parents are not aware. I'm not sure if this is really happening.
In Washoe, yeah, I've talked to so many people up there, and that is allowed to happen up there, but that can come here, next week.
So what's important to me is that again, this is a situation where every situation needs to be evaluated according to the situation that is happening.
So it's not a hard no. That's not a hard no.
It's not a hard no, okay. But I need to have a full picture of what's happening. What is this child's situation? And obviously, this wouldn't be a conversation with me by myself, but it would be, counselors, psychologists, teachers. Because when a student,
would you want to be left out of that because you have kids, you're a mom?
I have kids.
So if your kids, in a few years, let's say they're in 6th grade, 7th grade, would you want the district to hold that information from you?
Speaking from the perspective of what I know about my family, there would be no reason to hide that from me. However, every child's situation is not the same. And what's important to me is that children feel safe and protected. And this would require that we have a full conversation and evaluation of what's happening with this child. Are they in a supportive family? That's where I'm going to stop with that, because I think we'll just go around in circles. But what's important for me is that I understand the dynamics of what's happening with our child. I've had friends in college who have been totally disowned by their families because they came out as lesbian. Mm-hmm. And this was a traumatic situation. I'm like in tears, like they are on their own, struggling to survive. Right. So what's important to me is that I understand the dynamics of what's going on in a person's family. Before, like for me, I my children, if my child said that they were gay or lesbian, I'm going to support my child. Right. And so, yeah, but everyone's situation is not that way. And I'm going to, Giovanni Melton was killed by his dad because he came out as gay. That is something that absolutely terrifies me. So I'm not a hard yes. I'm not a hard no. I am, let's understand what is happening in the family dynamics to know. And Miss Melton will tell you, she went through years of, you know her through the courts? No?
Maybe.
Okay. Years of trying to get justice for her child. And I think just recently, her ex-husband was, received the consequence. But that's something that I fear, absolutely fear. So, yeah.
Something else that parents talk about too during COVID, it was presented to the school board where they made a decision and a recommendation to JARA to force the vaccine mandate on teachers, mask mandates on our kids and all of this. And as well as I do, all these parents were up in arms down there and all over, even the county commission. They were just, against this completely. So if you were faced with that, because we could have another come up, would you mask the kids and would you support a mandate on teachers and employees?
In regards to COVID, that was something that was actually very contagious. I got COVID like 2 times from somebody else. I think when we're in schools and we're in communities, we need to do what we need to do to protect every child. Did anybody else get COVID in here?
I did, yeah.
You did. So that was like, hey, something's happening in society where we need to stay inside and mask up. Obviously, there's going to be some children who, for whatever, if they have a certain medical situation where they can't wear a mask, I think we need to think about that differently and, do what's right for that particular child. As a Black person who has been skeptical of vaccines, I don't necessarily agree. This is me. I don't necessarily agree that should be the mandate. However, I get vaccinated. And I do understand that people have their
your choice, right?
Yeah.
It was your choice.
Yes, absolutely.
You didn't get forced to take it.
So, but I do believe that, people have negative connotations toward vaccines. There should be a process to determine how are we going to decide to make this work? Like, what is the process to, work through this situation? And because I'm a person who has been skeptical of vaccinations, and, we had the Tuskegee experiment where Black people were just like experimented on. So from that perspective, I understand that. So like I said, I'm always open for a conversation, right? And,
but this isn't a hard no either.
Not necessarily.
Okay. Because parents want to know that. That is one thing that I talked about a lot on the campaign trail. Because people were so against this forcing of masks, especially on our kids. The kids weren't a risk factor for COVID, like, people with health issues and older people and things like that. Fiercely against that, fiercely against being forced vaccination. And I absolutely hands down 100%. I never, ever will waver on that.
Yeah.
I would never enforce a lockdown mask or vax mandate. That is up to the individual. And if you feel like you need to stay inside and you can't go to school and you can't go to work, that's your choice. But someone else's choice is their choice. We live in America. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of, people tell me their feelings about this, and especially at the schools, were just, so infuriated with a school board telling a parent what is best for their child. That's why I ask you, because I know there's going to be a lot of parents watching this, especially on this particular subject.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that,
and they want to know
deal.
where you stand with that and how you would potentially vote on something like that. Yeah. So
for me, it's like I said, this is a nonpartisan seat. So I'm committed to our community, and I'm committed to listening to what you believe the challenges are, and where let's help me to see it from the way that you see it, right? I think that one thing that is absolutely important is that when we're talking the mask situation, I think it does require we have to what are the regulations and policies from the CDC that we're being required to follow. I think all of those things are important and they matter. And where I think where the breakdown is happening, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, is that we're not, as leaders, taking the time to really hone in on the conversation, listening. And so it's, yes, we have public comment. And as a person who engages in public comment, I understand that side of the aisle. And I think that's what gives me a unique perspective coming into this role, because I'm going to have a level of empathy for people who come to do public comment, because I've done that and I felt like my voice has not been heard. So we need something else so that we can have a grown-up adult dialogue about what is happening. Let me understand your issues. How can we work together so that everybody wins?
It's interesting. I've seen this in not only school board meetings, but commission, city council, where the entire room is all in one voice opposing whatever the subject is, and that board will vote against all those people that came that are just, mad as hornets, up in arms about this issue. They take their time to come down and voice their opinions, and then all of them vote against all these people. And it's like they don't listen. They don't care. They have their own agenda. And what you're saying is that it sounds like you would listen to these people, but maybe the rest of the board wouldn't. But it's interesting that so many times they will vote against the mass of people.
So here's my my framework is what you're asking for in a place of justice. How does everyone win? And is this causing somebody else harm? When I was in divinity school, one of the assignments that we had to do was we had to look at a Bible scripture, and we had to write a project about it. And then we had to write, how does this oppress somebody else? So my question, I have my framework that I'm going to go through. What is it that you're asking for? Tell me all the advantages, the disadvantages. And then my final question is, does this cause harm or oppress anyone else? And that's how I'm going to make the decisions. And I know this probably, I don't want to say that anything is ever absolute or cookie cutter, because I'm an open-minded person who wants to really understand, like I told you, I'm into narratives. I want to understand where people come from so that we can build common ground. But that's really the framework that I'm going to operate from.
I want to talk about Title IX for just a minute. That's another hot topic that people talked about a lot. And I talked about that a lot too on the campaign trail, was, these biological boys coming into our girls' private spaces, locker rooms, sport programs. That's another thing. You could be faced with that And what are your views on that? And what Biden has done to Title IX?
Ooh. Dang. You okay.
She's like, I'm glad you weren't on the doors for interview.
Right.
He wouldn't let me because I was a candidate. So I couldn't do so. No, I'm not. So, and this is all just from, people I've talked to,
I know that
all over the place.
These are,
and,
the controversies that come up and we have to be able to have conversations around them.
It's what parents want to know, because these are all things that was talked about widely.
Here's where I am. Again, I support LGBTQ plus IA communities, and I support transgender people. For me, what I would need is to have a collective conversation with involved parties around this situation. I just don't have a.
You don't have a hard answer on that.
Yeah, I don't have a hard answer right now.
But
what I would like to have is conversation around it from both sides to just have more understanding.
You have a daughter.
I do.
And I have a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter played basketball. She was in sports. She was very good at that and played year-round ball. And I could not imagine a boy who wanted to be a girl, which, that's their decision. That's their life. But I can't imagine that boy changing in front of my daughter. And just picture this for your daughter. Say she's 12, 13. And there's the boy, and she's being forced to change in front of him, whatever the sport is or whatever. And then because biologically a man is built different, they're much stronger than we are, girls get hurt in sports because the force and the strength of biological boys and men. They can take scholarships away from these girls that have worked their entire lives. When they get to that college level, this biological boy, just because he's, calling himself a girl. And I'm not judging that and their decision to do that in life. That's their choice. But we as parents have to protect our girls. We have to protect their privacy. And I hear, our senators talk about women's rights and all of this, but what happened to our girls? Where are their rights? So you've got 100 girls in a locker room and you're not protecting any of their rights, but you're protecting that one boy that wants to go in there and be a part of the girls' club. Where's the equity in that? So that's something that parents would want to know, where you stand on that, what you would decide on that. What would your decision be on that?
Right now, I don't have one right now. Okay. Yeah, I don't. But what I do have is the ability to, like I said, I need to understand from both sides.
How many degrees do you have?
Oh, gosh. I have a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in education, special education, and a master's in divinity. And I'm working on my doctor of philosophy in special education.
So one of those things that intrigued me when I watched your interview was you're so smart. So I'm thinking that you'll be able to think on your feet like that. How come you don't have answers?
You had to have been asked this sometime along the way on the campaign trail. Have you not been asked all these questions as you've been out there running for school board?
I have.
Okay.
And, but here's what I don't want to, what's important to me is that I hear from all sides.
you can't please everybody
Right.
in your life.
Yeah.
And I learned that being a Marine, you just cannot please everybody. But what you try to please is the majority. The majority is what you try to please, not the minority. It's the majority. You know, I mean, just like how people vote for you, it's the majority wins, right? If you have more votes than your opponent, you win. You know, and sometimes we just got to look at it like that. You know. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean,
I was on your website. I told you this earlier before we started, and what was interesting to me, and I've seen multiple school board candidates that have received an endorsement from Planned Parenthood. So is that something that you sought out their endorsement, or do they seek out certain school board candidates and offer it to you? Do you sit for an interview? How does that work?
I sought out the Planned Parenthood endorsement. Planned Parenthood Nevada Votes.
And why would you do that? How does that relate to the school?
You know, I believe in Planned Parenthood. When I was in college at Howard University, some of my work was with Planned Parenthood because I understood that a lot of the work that they do is preventative, to educate our community about how to make safe choices, how to, what decisions to make before you get yourself in a situation where you may have to make a decision about an abortion or not. I support women's freedom. I support women's decision to make. I support women's decision to decide what they want to choose with their bodies. There are women in society who have been raped, who may decide to choose whatever type of medical care that's best to support their life. There are people in society who have had issues of incest, who may decide to whatever medical care they need for themselves that's best. And I support a woman's right to choose what is the best medical procedures and health benefits that they need for themselves.
Do you support transition surgery for minors?
I think that is a decision that needs to be made with the family.
What to not to switch gears a little bit, but a little curious. How many endorsements did you receive?
Yes, so I've been endorsed by Hispanic in Politics, the Culinary Union, AFL-CIO, Planned Parenthood Nevada Votes. I've been endorsed by the sheet metal workers, and then organizations within our community. I've been endorsed by Wake Up. These are organizational communities who've done work in education. I've been endorsed by Wake Up, the Giovanni Melton Foundation. I've been endorsed by some leaders in the community, President Robert Bush. I've been endorsed by, who else? I think there's some more I'm missing. Oh, Independent Black Voters. I've been endorsed by, I think, the SEIU and, Teamsters.
So you've had a joint endorsement by 4 veteran organizations, and I didn't see that. That wasn't on your website listed under your.
So
with all
I put, so I have Veterans in Politics International, and this is on me because I've been a little kind of confused with, I keep getting emails about you're not supposed to put this logo, that logo. So that's really, I've been kind of nervous about putting.
Well, let me put it on the record.
So,
Let me put it on the
Yes,
record.
please.
I own Veterans in Politics International, name, logo nationally, and I own Nevada Veterans Association statewide, name and logo.
So that's on me because when I put Veterans in Politics, my assumption was that but I will make sure that. Well, if I still have the endorsement.
Yeah, no, there's 4 logos.
No, you got the endorsement.
No, you got the endorsement. No, you got the endorsement, but there's 4 different logos that you can use. There's Armed Forces,
and there's the
Chamber,
Nevada
and there's Nevada Democrat.
That's, and listen, I'm not higher or above anyone else to be like, hey, I didn't do this part. That was on me, and I've actually just kind of procrastinated with that to really make sure that I know what can be used, what cannot be used. So I'm going to make sure that I get that updated this
Who was
week.
your first endorsement?
Veterans in Politics
And
International.
why wasn't it there?
Right, yeah.
But the others that came way
You know what?
afterwards.
Listen,
are
I've been
there.
getting, everyone, community, I have been getting slammed for endorsements. Like, you didn't say my name. And absolutely, I agree with you. You're right. You were my first endorsement. And I announced that.
And
what's the other thing? What did I
it's
do?
videotaped.
Yes. And it's videotaped.
Video.
And I shared that.
Yeah.
I shared the video. And I'm very happy about your endorsement. So I will definitely make sure that I double back and do my due diligence, because that is important. And just to let everyone know, I've literally been getting slammed. Like, I've been like, okay, create this flyer, because it's important to people.
There's 339,000 veterans live in the state of Nevada.
And it's important.
The majority of them are here. And they all have families and they all have friends. So it might even be even more.
Yeah, no, I absolutely understand. And then this is a lot of, and I don't want to make excuses, because I'm definitely, excuses are for the weak and incompetent. But I'm
going to use that.
And those who use them seldom arise to anything. But I'm going to make sure that I do my due diligence on that, because you did the work to interview me, ask me tough questions like you're still doing today. So I will definitely make sure that I rectify that. And I have no problem saying when I went somewhere when I was wrong, didn't do something the way it was supposed to be done. So, yeah.
One last question, and then I'll let you finish up. In your interview, you talked about waste in the school district, and there was brought up about food waste. And I have been involved in children's charities for over 30 years, and I have my own nonprofit here. And I know that 1 in 4 homes are food challenged, and even up in Summerlin, there are homes, there are kids, and people have no idea that this many families are affected. And these kids, I support this organization that bags food and brings it to schools on Fridays so that these kids can have a bag of food to go home with for the weekend, because they won't, some of them won't get food until they have breakfast on Monday morning that's provided by the school. So these kids will go all weekend and not have food. So when we see that waste with all the food that kind of goes into the trash, couldn't that be packaged? And maybe it is in some schools, and it's given to these kids to take home. I don't see a reason why some of this needs to be thrown in the trash when it's perfectly good and can be packaged and really help a lot of these families and these kids that don't have a lot of food.
Yeah. So my understanding right now is that the food is being distributed to students.
Is that a requirement? Is that a policy that the district has in place? Is that something that every school has to do that so we don't have that waste?
I'm not sure it's the policy, but here's why
Should
we need.
It be though?
I think so. Absolutely think so. So here's where we are. This is why we need new leadership. So on the school board, so that we can begin to address these issues that, all the times that I've been at a school board meeting, food waste hasn't even been to my knowledge, hasn't been on the agenda. So I think this is a very important conversation that we need to have that includes the voices who want to be a part of that, so that we can come together with our thinking minds and decide what is the best option. What can we do within the law to determine, and I'm not saying within the law, but within, the food regulations. Because I know hotels, they throw away food all the time because they're whatever that, they don't want somebody to get sick. So
this is apples, bananas, wrapped food, cartons of milk, drinks, anything that is, not something that somebody has eaten or, things like that. But certainly, things that can go home and help on a daily basis. I don't see need for waste like that.
And what I would like to see is a review, evaluation, and revision of policies. We have not, I think the latest policy was 2017. So we're due for just really evaluating all of that. What I would like to see is that all of the departments across the district are doing a review and evaluation of what's going on in their department. So the food service department, how much waste do we have? Like, are students enjoying the food? Like, I just came back from Santiago, Chile. And in Santiago, Chile, the students get a home cooked meal. And I'm like, well, we need to bring that to Las Vegas. So, there's a lot of places for innovation that we can have. But I do think that, again, what is important to me is that we're collectively looking at what the problems are, collectively determining what some solutions could possibly be, and then collectively working together to see these challenges be solutions. Goodness. Okay. You're good. I love your question.
Ms. Bywaters, during this COVID, we found out that the school district couldn't account for 65,000 students because of the couch surfing.
Because of the what?
Couch surfing.
Oh, okay.
What, as a trustee, what could you do to rectify that problem?
The first challenge with Clark County School District is that when school districts were making plans, they were at the board, like, still having arguments and didn't, they weren't creating a plan. And I think the lack of planning is what caused so many children to be kind of displaced. What's important to me is that we begin to be proactive instead of reactive, because we're seeing, this is the problem, now let's try to fix it. But this is why having that evaluation is important. The school district did not do their job in locating the students because of all of the infighting and the focus on the issues that really had nothing to do with students, where we were not able to really track where these students were and not being in school. And I know that some, and you're talking about specifically during COVID. Yeah. There's a lot of lawsuits that really should have happened during that time, especially like students with disabilities, because some of their services stopped and you just can't stop because COVID happened. So I think, again,
They weren't.
no, I give, whenever Clark County School District, I'm very critical of the Clark County School District, but whenever there are things that have been good, I like to say what's good. But COVID caught us all off guard. But I do think that what's important is when we're looking for a superintendent is that we understand how are you going to be able to think and move in a crisis situation? And because we had never been through that, I don't think they didn't have that forward thinking mind to really have that to be a part of the process. And that's why, this person, the superintendent, makes what?
More than the president of the United States.
A lot of money.
That salary needs to be reviewed, let me tell you. Oh my gosh.
So you need to be able to bring some results and be able to think on your toes. And so this for me is one, where I think that I can play a very important role. Obviously, I'm one vote on, I would be one vote on the board. And it would be my job to influence and to engage and, try to work with my colleagues to, come to some agreements. But it's important that we have a superintendent who can do the job effectively with the amount of money that you've been given. Like, there's no excuses. Like, either you can do it or you can't. And if you're not the one for the job, then we need to put somebody else in the place.
So speaking of superintendents, it's up to the school board trustee to search for a superintendent, right?
Correct.
They're the ones that hire the superintendent.
Correct.
They're the ones that approve their contract and approve how much money that they're making, right?
Yes.
So why would a superintendent bar a school board trustee from attending any schools like they did a few years ago with Trustee Child?
Yeah, I'm not a proponent. I'm definitely not a proponent of that. Like, constituents, if I'm voted in, constituents vote me in, And for me, that has been a breakdown in, let me go back. So the thought of some trustees, former trustees, that literally have said, is that they're like, oh, if you want to be involved with your schools, you can. If not, you don't have to. I personally, I don't understand that at all. So I'm not in agreement with that. And like I said, what I would like to propose on the board is that we review board governance, all of the policies on the board. I don't think that school board trustees should not have access to their schools. Now, I think what the problem was is that they felt like there was some micromanaging and stuff like that. So I do think we need to come together and decide, I shouldn't be going to the school and like bullying the principal or, trying to see what's going on. Like, it's not about being a bully. This is working together. But I plan to be involved in all of my schools. On day one, my calendar is going to be with me, ready to take meetings and let's have conversations. Let's see where we are. Let's move our district forward together. I don't think that it's going to be, I don't want to put out that I'm romanticizing. It's not going to be cookie cutter as I think, some people think it's going to be. Like, we have disagreements.
Yeah.
We all do.
Big one.
We have disagreements, period. And that's why I know you're getting on me like, you should be able to answer these questions, I understand.
Because I'm saying that you're a very smart young lady.
I am, but I also understand that we have disagreements. So how do we work? You know what I'm saying? How do we work through the disagreements that we have? How can we all win? And I'm not going to sit here and say that I have all the answers, but what I have is the ability to let's work this out. And sometimes our work, we might have to, I was going to say throw buzz, but we're not going to be throwing buzz, but we're going to have to duke it out. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think that we're going to be in a space of
luxury.
Yeah, definitely not luxury, but like, here's what I want to say, like how are we going to, at the end of the day, how are we going to work through these disagreements?
I think parents want to be heard because
absolutely.
especially like this, graphic stuff we were talking about, they're not being heard. They're being cut off and nothing is being done about it. They're not being listened to. And you cannot, exactly. You cannot tell me one parent that has walked into a school board meeting and said, please put this stuff in front of my kid and teach my kid about oral sex and all these pornographic things. Not one parent has done that. So why does a school board continue to push these things, not do anything about it, not give these parents any kind of answer or no voice at all, and just disregard them? That is what that right there is the fight. That is a huge fight. And one more thing I wanted to ask you that I was thinking about as well. When we want kids protected, when we want communities protected, we have elected officials, president, everybody's protected. We have a country that's protected.
What do they have? The Secret Service and you go to policing.
We have weapons to protect our country, our people, our communities and our families and our homes. If you choose to have a weapon in your home. But I see all of these school shootings around the country. And what has happened here, Palo Verde happened. It happened at multiple schools where kids are bringing guns to school. How would you feel about putting armed guards at every school? And why hasn't our country done that as a whole across the country? Having armed guards at school, at least 2 per school, to protect our kids, protect our teachers. Mm-hmm. What do you feel about that?
Or campus carry.
Or teachers, if teachers want to be trained and armed and, have, concealed carry, why not?
And it would be a specialized training. It would be a training that virtual, that kids are coming and people are shooting. It'll be one of those more advanced training, not just you get a CCW and you move on your way. It'd be more advanced to protect the students and protect yourself.
I am not, my ideology is that, and this is what this is about, is understanding my ideology. I am not a proponent of militarizing schools. Now, were you in the military?
No, my son is.
Okay.
My son too.
You were in the military.
I believe in militarizing it.
I know you do. But from your perspective, like,
is that militarizing a school with 2 armed guards or 3 armed guards that are concealed?
I'm not
walking
I don't believe in
around
dead children either.
That those weapons are concealed on them. Kids, they don't see open weapons. I'm certainly not the ARs, strapped across their chest. I'm not suggesting that, but having some sort of protection.
So, yes, I agree that we need to have a more robust safety plan because of what children are bringing guns to school. We have school shootings. I mean, we just had UNLV happen. So the incident at UNLV. So I am a proponent of let's, again, you all are probably going to be sick and tired of me saying conversation, but what I'm hearing is that the community wants their voice to be included and not me just making up all the decisions and then you're mad, right? So at least what's important to me is that I'm informed on every angle of the challenge.
I guess basically we want to know how you think.
Yeah, and that's what I'm sharing. So when it comes to the policing, here's the challenge that I have. Every police officer is not responsible. We just saw that with the incident at Durango, where the student was treated, a Black student specifically, was treated really out of pocket and his rights were violated on camera. So the concern for me is that I'm concerned with all of the challenge that we have with equity and diversity and the overrepresentation of our minoritized students being sent to behavioral schools and always being overly disciplined. I'm concerned that, and I don't want to say that like with arming teachers, that scares me that a gun would be in a classroom and anything could happen. I'm nervous that a teacher may pop off one day. We've seen teachers on the news recently with situations inappropriate. That really makes me nervous. However, what I am open to is we already have police in school, the CCSD police in schools, and I'm definitely not happy with the services that they've been providing. I do think that we have individuals who are great at their jobs and they're building community, but I also think that there's some work that needs to be done. And I don't know if this is a fair statement for me, but I would trust you because, you have experience, with handling of weapons or whatnot. But what concerns me is that there will be individuals who are not as trained in schools.
That's why I say about the advanced training, more intense training than the normal. And if you want to carry, you should have an additional psychiatric background check because you brought up the fact that maybe a teacher might just lose it in school. But if you get a psychiatric background check that's more advanced and have more advanced training in weapon using and hostage taking and all that stuff, if the teacher really want to go through that course, let's say it's a 6-month course or something like that, if you want to carry a weapon on school campus,
There's plenty of veterans, dads, grandfathers, people that would embrace that idea and go to a school and carry their weapon concealed. So the kids, it's not right that the kids, they don't even know. But
I got one on me now.
I do too.
I'm not scared. I'm not scared.
We can protect the school.
I'm not scared.
But it's something that, we protect everything and people and our society because we have weapons. And those can be, I can't even begin to imagine how many of these school shootings could have been prevented had there been armed guards, at the door or down the hall. And you didn't have to wait for police to get there. And then the police, the debacle in Uvalde, and those guys just sitting there for an hour and a half without doing anything. You know, these guys, you know, especially veterans, retired police officers, there's so many people that are trained and able to do that type of job and protect our kids. I just don't understand how that hasn't been implemented in some way.
Well, the pushback is that minoritized communities have been disproportionately impacted by policing. And that is a barrier, and it makes me nervous. And at the end of the day, I have to trust that the individual carrying their weapon on school has my best interest at heart, regardless of who I am, regardless of my beliefs, has their mental health intact. And that's the concern. Now, I am, what I would like to see is a robust conversation, because the reality is we have to do something. And what I would like to see is a safety plan that doesn't cause fear. I mean, Black communities, minoritized communities are not always comfortable around weapons and a big presence of policing. Now, if we can come together and figure out how we can work through this, I'm definitely open for those conversations. But right now, I just don't see arming teachers being a solution to, let me say this, I'm not comfortable with arming teachers.
Are you comfortable with arming parents, with educational savings account, the ESA, so they can make a choice whether to keep their child in a public school? I know I'm switching the subject on you.
Say that one more time.
Educational savings account, ESAs, whether they keep the child in a public school, but to take those federal dollars and put into a private school. Or taking money from public education to put in a private school? No, it's not money from the school. It's that the child. It's the child that gets the money when the child goes to the school. But if that parent wants to take that child out of that school and put that money into a private sector, do you have a problem with that? Because the money follows the child.
I'm not a fan of taking money from public education to support private schools and schools that should be finding ways to support their schools. And the reason why is because I believe that public schools is like the backbone of our society, and not everyone has a privilege to, pay for the best school. And even if
that's why you can take that money.
So let me say this.
And the poor parents or disadvantaged parents could take that money and put a child in private school. Okay, so the 2 points I'm going to say. One, parent, you have the right to put your child in any school that you want. However, I'm a proponent of public education. I understand why there's this conversation between charter school, private school, charter schools or public school. I understand why people are looking for the best opportunity because our district has failed us. Victim. So I understand that. For years. But here's the problem that I have with the vouchers or money following the child. Every child is not going to get into Gorman. Every child's not going to get into Faith Lutheran. Let's say 3,000 kids now have the opportunity to go to, because they have their accounts, now they all go sign up to go to Faith Lutheran. Who's going to get in Faith Lutheran? I'm sorry, Faith Lutheran, and Faith Lutheran knows me well. The minoritized students are not getting into Faith Lutheran. They might get in the Lamb of God. Well, praise ye. They want to go to Faith Lutheran.
I can tell you what I'm saying is that there are a lot of minority students there because my kids both went there. I don't know the percentage, but I was there for 6 years for each child.
Well, and we have to look at what a lot is. And I'm not discounting you, but I was, I get calls often about issues at Faith Lutheran. So my concern is that we'll still, even with the money following the child, every child is not going to have opportunity. There's going to be a wait list.
Yeah,
and
do
then
have a wait list.
They do it now.
They do.
So that's my only concern. And this is why, I do believe in public education, that we have to work to ensure that every school and every child's neighborhood is worthy for them to say, I want to go there and be a part of the school environment. Their facilities need to look grand and grandiose. Like, they need to have the best.
Running water.
And running water. Like, hello, and no waste.
Ms. Phillips, do you have any more questions for Ms. Bywaters?
It's 8 o'clock.
Oh, no.
I
think I could probably come up with more, but no, I'll let her go.
Ms. Bywaters.
Let's get together.
Ms. Bywaters, I want to thank you.
Thank you
for coming on and during this presidential debate.
I know.
You see, we'd rather sit here with you than watch the presidential.
And I think I missed a school board meeting today, so.
But this has been very enlightening.
Okay.
And no, we're not going to take away your endorsement. You have all 4 of them.
Okay.
So we just wanted to make sure that people, the voters out there that are on the fence, that really they could get a clear understanding of who Ms. Bywaters is before they go to the voting booth and vote. Because we're talking about our children. Absolutely. Parents will die for their children, and me being in family court, going with those litigants, I know how value parents put on their child, especially their children's education, because the children that's our future. They're the ones that's going to run this country, right? In the next 10 years or maybe even less in some cases, right? So we put a high value on our children, and we want to know people that are actually going to be the tool or the moving parts into our children's education. So parents need to really take a good look at what you're saying about these different questions that we've been asking.
And more so, judicial candidates and school board candidates.
Mm-hmm.
People don't do a lot of research, and they don't know who these people are. In large part, they'll pay attention to other races, but not these. So I get a lot of calls. I know Steve does.
I fill ballots out for different, and I'll say, people come to me and say, "Hey, could you fill this out for me?" Fill it out for them. I hand it right back to them. They're the ones that sign it. I don't sign it.
They don't know. So that's why I asked you all of those things, because out there they want to know those things. And this is such the program that he does, interviewing candidates. It's such an educational process. All somebody has to do is listen to a podcast, and they hear direct from the candidate. Yeah. And it's very educational for people. And I think it's great that he provides this to people. So this is the best way.
For sure.
So Ms. Bywaters, look into the camera and tell folks why they should go to the voting booth and put you in the school board trustee this coming November.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. Again, my name is Kamilah Bywaters. I'm running for the Board of School Trustees for District E. And I believe that let me say this. I want to earn your vote because I have been committed to education. I think one thing that we talked about tonight is that we have some disagreements, but what's important to me as a human being and a person, a part of society, that all of our voices matter. And I am an individual who I take in what is important to you, what challenges are important to you, what challenges you have been faced with, so that I can wrestle with it. I don't have all of the answers. I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers. I don't think that I should have all the answers, because that's not what my platform is. My platform is to be here to bring our voices together, and understanding that we don't have the same religion, we don't have the same background, we don't have the same culture. We may not have the same experience growing up, but what I am willing to do is be that center person to listen to all sides and to figure out, how do we just grapple with this and how do we make it through? Because at the end of the day, what is important to me is that every single person, even when we disagree, is that we feel heard and respected, And that's who I am. And that's what I bring that's what I believe I would bring to the board. And that's the humanity part of me. And what also I bring is the accountability and ensuring that working to really be an influential part of changing the dynamics of our board, ensuring that we are reviewing and evaluating policies. But on the basic level, I want to see everyone win. And I know that there's people who don't agree with me. That's okay. I don't agree with you. And I know that there's people who do agree with me. That's okay. And I know that there's just so many issues. But what you get from me is a person who will come to have coffee with you, who will come or tea if you want tea or tea. If, like I said, on day one, when I have my calendar there, I don't care who you are or what differences we have in I'm willing to come and meet with you and to break bread so that we can just find some type of common ground.
And please give your contact information.
Yes, Kamilah Bywaters. You can check out my website at Kamilah4Nevadans.com. You can call me 725-500-2111, call or text. You can email me at Kamilah4Nevadans@gmail.com. And if you want to get together now, just hit me up.
Well, Ms. Bywaters, thank you so much for coming on the program. Ms. Phillips, thank you so much for co-hosting. Folks, that's Kamilah Bywaters, running for Clark County School Board, District E as a trustee. And she's been endorsed by all 4 veteran groups. She's in District E. If you don't live in District E and you know somebody that does, call them up and tell them to put Kamilah Bywaters into the school board trustee because she'll be a breath of fresh air. This is Steve Sampson, Stephanie Phillips of Veterans in Politics. Until next time.